better way to describe this is the duties of a department liaison. Because really trying to come up with what the describing of a town board member does, I mean, how would you do, I mean, kissing babies, this, that's too subjective. But as I've learned on this job, I think the value of a liaison to these department heads is unquantifiable. And I just don't know if I've ever seen anything that I know of that basically says to somebody running for the position, this is what the job entails when it comes to being a liaison. And also, I put her, do the candidates for the town board really know what the job entails? And I put, it's a lot more than showing up to Thursday morning meetings, marching in parades, etc. You do know, and this is a bit of a negative slant on it, when you're out there in the community, at least I've seen, well, town board members get paid X, and all they do is come to the Thursday board meetings. That's an easy job. I'm like, yeah, you don't understand the job. That's not the only thing they do.
The vast majority of our residents, to no fault of their own, do not understand what we do. There's a whole lot of people out there that couldn't even tell you who the supervisor is.
Absolutely.
Okay? Everybody's busy, they got their lives going, they're doing that. As long as their town is being run efficiently and there don't seem to be any major issues, people are happy. They're not paying a whole lot of attention to what you and I are doing up here right now.
You're right. You're right. My second bullet point is, do the citizens know what the job entails? You might have just answered that,
No.
Barry. I did put a little bit more that there may be a misperception of the job, such as candidate stances on national issues that separate the two main political parties in the United States, when in reality, town government works very different from the national.
We don't have anything to do with that.
And I've also said that, and I think this is also a misconception that's out there, is that our job, once we're elected to this seat, is not political. We're here to do the business of the town, and politics, I've never seen it get in the way of that, nor should it ever.
No, I made a mistake, thank you, Paige. I should have put a third bullet point in here. Our department heads. Ask our 15 department heads, what is the job of the liaison? You're going to get 15 different answers. And we're in a transition period with retirements and this and that I think there might be a value to just having, some written up. And it's not, as you see at the end, there's no law, code, or whatever. It's just kind of like this board says, yeah, one page, those are the bullet points. Everybody kind of now is on the same page. The department head has an expectation of, what they can expect from their liaison. The liaison knows what their expectations are. And I'll just give you an example. It happened for years, I heard, that the quarterly budget to actual meetings, liaison, department head, town supervisor. For some reason, the last several years or a couple of years, they didn't happen. Why? Who knows? That happens in an organization, right? I can tell you this, in 15 months as a supervisor, those are extremely valuable meetings for the department head, for the liaison, and for the supervisor. You want to talk about, our main job, as far as I'm concerned, is the fiduciary handling of the town taxpayers in this $35 million budget. That's a fact. I don't know how you could argue that isn't our main job. Is there a more critical thing than once a quarter having that meeting between the department head, who might be overseeing a $6 million budget, the liaison, and the town supervisor to see is there anything that went awry? Is there any anomaly? Is there any expense that's trending way higher than it should be and all that stuff? That type of checkup is something that me as a taxpayer, man, I would hope that is always happening. And it did. And it didn't.
Well, as a liaison, I think, this is my 12th year. Bill's in his 13th year already, 14th year. It never was really explained in detail to us as liaisons what we were, but we pretty much understood that we were supposed to communicate with our department that we're liaison to at least once a month to meet with them, or in addition to that, if they need any help, which would be there to call us.
Do you know something, Barry, what you just said? Honestly, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Okay? But that's, and I've always tried to be part of that, but then there's also been times where it didn't really make sense for me to do so, seeing as how my department head that I was representing or liaison to was meeting with the town supervisor for 2 hours once a week, as it was. What are we going to talk about? And we're just more or less of a conduit between the department and the town board, so that we know what's going on with them and we can share that with the rest of the town board, and so that one person hasn't got to do it all. So individually, we all have a number of departments that we handle, and if there's an issue, we bring it to the town board at a workshop or whatever. So there's communication between the department heads and the town board, not just the supervisor.
And Barry, I could go on and on about what you just said, and what you just said, a mouthful of pretty good stuff, but Barry, go ahead.
The bullet point that you left off, the third bullet point, to me is the most valuable one in this endeavor, and that is so that the department heads know what they can rely on the liaisons for and what the expectations are. To me, that's the most valuable piece of this. Whether the public knows what we do or not, or whether incoming candidates know what we do or not, yeah, it's important, but to me, for the function of this responsibility, our department heads should know what they can rely on us for, and I think that's critical.
Like I said, there's no, I said at the beginning, this could hit the editing room floor and I wouldn't bat an eye. But I thought it was worth at least bringing up. Charlie, you gotta agree something like that. It's not a law, code, or resolution. It'd just be kind of like, oh, this is what this board has come up with as a policy. Future boards,
I
say.
I think there's a lot of people who run for office that don't understand the office they run for. I'm not talking about anybody here, but I'm just saying this is in general, and I've seen this. I've been involved, for years in government. I mean, decades, really. And I also have seen other town boards and how they operate. This town board is much more hands-on than most, I'm guessing. Also, this particular town board is very involved of other town boards that I've seen even in the town. I think the term, the liaison position is one that is pretty much defined by the person who is holding that position. I think it's good to lay out what the expectation is, but I think it's going to be up to the person how much time and effort and knowledge do they want to bring to the board and bring to it. So I understand what you're trying to do is educate, and I think that's important, because I think you're right, a lot of people don't understand what the position means and what it means once you're in office here. But, here, again, we've got people who've all been in public office now for some time, probably have a pretty good idea of what the departments do or what the department heads are doing. So it's just more my commentary. But
And it's funny, like I said, I could go on for hours, but Barry said, don't worry, Bill, I won't, I still have that date, we're gonna wrap this up. A lot of it's because, and I think everybody knows here, that I have really tried to make sure that there's 2, 3, 4 different people involved in collaborative decision making. Not because I'm afraid to make decision making, but I've learned over the years, you get some different points of view and you end up with a better end product decision making. And we've done that. There's no better example of that than the process we've used to vet and hire department heads in the last year. And we've struck gold. I'm going to tell you, if I had handled that process mono or whatever, there are a couple people we hired that I wouldn't have hired, because I wouldn't have seen the opinions of other people in the process. And I'm like, that's a good point, and whatever. It's a very slippery slope. You know, you hire you vote, you elect leaders. You don't elect, you know, we don't do referendum decisions. We don't go out and get a temperature of the world on every decision we make. We are the leaders. We were elected. We make decisions that the town doesn't like. We get elected out. But internally, I saw a great value to the liaison, department head, town supervisor, that having 3 people bouncing ideas off each other, to me, is just better than, Harry, like you said. There were times when we thought, I really don't need to meet with the department head as liaison because they're meeting with the supervisor every week for 2 hours. Yeah, but then they're only being influenced and only seeing the ideas and the insights and the experience of the supervisor. And personally, I think I'd rather have you in the room for certain discussions with the department head, because you're going to point references from your past and your experience that I don't have, that no supervisor is going to sit in this position and have, the wide, vast experience. I get off my soapbox.
I just want to add that I do sit on another board, and I've been on that board for many years, actually. And actually, I chair that board. And we have found through the years, in bringing new board members in, that a board member description, a job description, if you will, has been extremely valuable. Because then the incoming members know exactly what's expected of them. And it avoids those difficult discussions later on when you think that the board member's not really living up to the expectations that you had for them coming in. It's very clear from the very beginning what's expected of you and how you will be a value add to their plan.
Well, I don't know if this has any bearing on it, but that's a board of volunteers that are working in an organization. This is elected officials.
You got it.
This is different.
But
This
don't
is
you-
Anybody that can vote
Right.
can be elected.
But I understand, but don't you think it's helpful to have that spelled out when you're thinking about
Yeah, I
running?
do. I think it would be nice if when, after this next election, whoever's sitting on this board, you all sat together and said, this is what we expect of one another. This is your job, your job, your job, and that's how we do it. I don't disagree with you at all.
I saw what you just did. You did it after this year. You son of a gun. That's what you did.
You keep bringing
I
that up.
gotta just say, and you, we are not a volunteer board, and because of that, Bill is absolutely correct. And that's why I said at the end here, look, I'm well aware, this is not a resolution, this is not a code, this is not this is just kind of like a working document that is a point in time for, do the 5 board members sitting on the board at that time say, yeah, this is something that we feel comfortable giving to the department heads, and there's just a demarcation of the expectations of it. Next year, the new board might say,
You might have somebody elected in this new election that has absolutely no understanding of what a town board does. And you as the supervisor are going to have to educate that individual.
I have no problem
If
with
you
that.
are the one elected.
Well, that's a good point, Bill, that's right. Whoever is the supervisor in January 22
That's correct.
is going to have to educate
All the new board.
Barry's,
Yeah.
perfect.
Any new board member
Any new
has
board
got-
member.
has
You
got
know you're
to-
going to have one new board member.
has got to be willing to ask the questions.
I would say this, wow.
Because a lot of times you don't ask the questions of things that are going on
Ooh.
because you don't want to seem,
Ooh. I'm not gonna say
Well,
you don't want to seem uninformed.
I think the point that Bill and Barry are making is that a lot of this, I think it's very, very good to be a collaborative board, but it has to be, in my opinion, driven by the supervisor. And I'm not saying that the supervisor is responsible for putting together, quote, job description. I think that's got to be a collaborative effort by the it's not driven by the supervisor, you've got a supervisor that doesn't really believe in collaborative decisions, then you're looking down that tunnel. And all these are put aside.
This is not,
But I think, and I absolutely agree with your statement that because the new department has been selected in a collaborative effort, it was, made some very, very, very good selections. I think the collaborative is the way to go.
and I'll leave it, look, like I said,
It's a good discussion.
the best example, I'll tell you this, let's, God willing, if I'm the supervisor in January, okay? Now, we know at least one new board member will be here. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that that board member, probably in November, within a couple of weeks after the election, I am going to sit down with and say, as far as I'm concerned, you being new, there's a lot of good to you being new. You will see things that maybe we didn't see. So let's focus on that newness and how you can bring something new. Because they're going to be a liaison to some of these departments. Now, I don't expect them on January 1st to know everything and whatever, and I will spend time with them, but relationships are a two-way street. They then have to show me that they have immersed themselves into the thing, in learning and this and that. I don't think that's a lot to ask. Now, that's just my opinion. And any other supervisor might say, yeah, no, they just come to the board meetings. The best example I can give them, in a way, is what Art Patrone did the last 6 weeks when he was the interim highway superintendent. He could have done the bare minimum, which, as the deputy DPW commissioner in the code and all that, he could have gone in and signed the paperwork that we needed him to do based on his position to be in compliance with the state. But what he did was the first Monday, March 1st, during shift work, he showed up at 2:30 in the morning to see off the first shift. It starts at 3 a.m., I think, right? That's somebody jumping in. And I have a ton of respect for that. So that's, I guess, how I'm looking at it. Whoever, if anybody's watching who's running for that position,